Hi everyone, this is Julianne Victoria. Welcome to my channel. This is number 8 in our astrological studies series or playlist. We've covered the planets, the signs, the houses, and the elements and elemental qualities in Western astrology and Vedic astrology. And so today we're going to talk about the numerology, the fifth thing that's important to know. But as I stressed in the last video, the signs, knowing the signs, the planets and the houses, what they represent, what they symbolize, what they mean is like the key piece for everything else in astrology. So yeah, let's talk about the numbers. When I talked about the houses, I pointed out that it's important to take note of the number symbolism when you look at the houses, as well as with the signs of the zodiac, like learning them in number order, like 1 Aries, 2 Taurus, because it helps to add those layers of meaning and understanding. So numerology. I'm not a numerologist, though I've played with numerology, looked at numerology, you could say maybe studied numerology for like, I don't know, 25 years. But I don't consider myself a numerologist because I don't practice it. I don't do it professionally outside of, occasionally like calculating a client's life path number and connecting that to tarot and so on. But numbers is a part of astrology and tarot and other esoteric, mystical, and occult studies and practices. So let's talk about numbers in astrology. The meanings of numbers, let's say the house numbers, the sign numbers, because again, they overlap and correlate, don't necessarily match up to like standard numerology or even the numerology you would use in tarot, because I know there's a lot of people from the tarot community here. So let's go through the numbers. So the number 1 is a number of independence, individuality, the self. That very much correlates to like first house and first sign of the zodiac, Aries, which is very Aries energy. So people with a lot of Aries in their chart really like to be their best. They like to be number 1, whether that's with themselves or competing with other people. So 1's pretty self-explanatory. And yeah, again, numbers, a lot of it is very intuitive, at least to me. Maybe it's because I've worked with them so much in various ways. So the number 2, so numerologically 2 is like a number of the couple, and especially in tarot, you could see it's like love, relationships, or decision. Do I do this or do I do that? Now in astrology, if you think about the 2nd house, which is a very material house, it's money and gains and finances and possessions, and the 2nd sign of Taurus, which is it's an earth sign, it's very material, it's very much into that which is tangible. It has a very different meaning, that number 2. So I see in astrology, at least, the number 2 as what is gained from the individual, from you, from being who you are. So you could see like 2nd house is what have you gained from you and your efforts in life. And this is why sometimes inheritance is looked at in the 2nd house, sometimes the 8th, but sometimes the 2nd, because it's something you gain by just being born into you, the one, the individual. Number 3, so many of you have heard that saying, 1 begets 2 and 2 begets 3 and 3 begets the whole world or something like that. So 3 is a number of creativity, community, and in astrology, it has those same meanings, right? It's communication, it's your community, it's your neighbors, it's your siblings, whether there are 3 or more. It is a number of creativity because anytime people get together and talk, communicate, gather, things can be created. So kind of the numerological associations with the number 3 are similar to the 3rd house in astrology and the 3rd sign of Gemini, which is it's a very talkative sign. It's very loquacious. It's very communicative, wanting to connect people and talking about this and that. And then it's like, what can be created from that gathering of thoughts, words, and people? Okay. I hope I'm making sense here. I'm trying to sum this up without it being like a long lecture. The number 4. So think of like a square, four-sided, very stable, very secure. Four is a number of stability. It's standard kind of numerology meaning. And of course, you can look online and find these long lists for all the numbers. So I'll leave that up to you guys. In astrology, for fourth house, our home ideally is where we have a stable foundation. It's where we come from. It's the traditions. Like tradition has a strong four number energy. And that's hard for me to explain because that's like totally a feeling. But like fourth house, fourth sign of the zodiac, Cancer, the sign of mother and emotions. We want stability there. We want some structure in our nurturing, which is Cancerian and fourth house energy. We want a foundation to rise out of, our family, our traditions, our culture, and fourth house, even past lives, past karma. It's a foundation we rise up out of. It's not always stable in a practical sense, but ideally it is. But it's the foundation, the four, the square that we rise out of, that we then build upon in this lifetime and in future lifetimes, if that's something you believe in. Number 5. So 5 is often considered a number of like change and chaos and challenges. It's the midpoint between 1 and 9. You could say 1 and 10, but numerologically 10 breaks down to a 1, right? It can also be that point, like the fulcrum in the middle, where you want to try to find that balance. Now, in astrology, the 5th house is a house of creativity as well as romance and children and education. And the 5th sign of the zodiac, Leo, is a very creative sign. So there's a strong creative element to 5 in astrology, this is where one is very different from how sort of standard numerology would look at a 5, right? A 5 is as chaotic and change and a bit challenging, in the middle, stuck in the middle. So, but in astrology, at least from how I see it, it's a very creative number because it's in the middle, and its potential for creative growth can go in all directions. If that makes sense. Okay. If none of this makes sense, that's fine. And you want to work with a different view on the numbers with astrology, that's totally fine too. Number 6. So 6 is a number of balance. Yeah, that's mostly like, if I have to give like a key word for the number 6 in numerology, I would say balance, harmony, in a way like checks and balances. Astrologically, so we have our 6th house, which is a house of like our daily routine, our hobbies, the stuff we do, our chores, the things we need to balance in life on a day-to-day basis, work and home life, our health routines and rest, self-care. Like we need to find that the balance and the checks and balances within that on a day-to-day basis. The 6th sign of the zodiac, Virgo, it's a very meticulous sign, and that energy with the number 6 works really well at keeping everything in balance. It can, of course, everything has its extremes. It could, become like OCD if it's out of balance, if the balancing is out of balance. But it is, it's all this energy of like, okay, I got this and this. Can I juggle this? Can I make it flow better? Keeping things in balance. Okay, so the number 7 is a number of wisdom and insight. It tends to be a very spiritual number numerologically. In astrology, though, of course, the 7th house is the house of the other, and it very much represents relationships, like the 7th sign of Libra. Now, Libra, of course, the symbol is the scales, and you think it's about balance, which it is also. But it's about balancing especially yourself and the other, yourself and a commitment, yourself and something else, someone or something else. And even though 7 isn't typically numerologically thought of as a number of relationships, in astrology it very much is. And that's because it's that 1st and 7th house axis. So the opposite houses, like 1, 7, 2, 8, 3, 9, 4, 10, 511, 612. They ideally work together. Okay. Yeah, so astrologically, the seventh house, seventh sign, that number 7 is the other, that which is outside of us, which you could say is like also, in an abstract sense, knowledge and wisdom and insights we gain from outside of us that we incorporate into ourselves. If you want to try to connect the numerological 7 with the astrological. Okay. Number 8. So 8 is a number of, like, if you think of the infinity symbol, continuum, the interconnectedness of things, the flow of things. In astrology, of course, 8th house and 8th sign of Scorpio are very mysterious, very intangible, hidden, buried, occult, even unknown stuff within ourselves or concerning a certain matter. But it is also the energy of death, change, and transformation, and hence the continuous cycle of life and death and the journeys we do within and between those cycles. So I see that connection there. It's like what goes round comes around. That's actually what I just heard in my mind's ear. What goes round comes around. It's a continuous cycle: death, rebirth, transformation, growth, into the cocoon, transformation, growth. And every time you dive into that transformative phase, that journey to the underworld, and so on, that's diving into the dark, the secret, hidden, and mysterious. And we will come out and we will go back in within a lifetime and across lifetimes. Okay. Number 9. Almost lost my place. Where was I? Number 9. So 9 is a number of completion. I know a lot of people think, 10 is completion, but 10 is like the 1. Just think, so those coming from the tarot community, the 10 is the transition to the 1, to the new beginning, still in that ending, but on the way to the new beginning. 9 is really a number of completing things, completing cycles, wrapping things up. So 9th house in astrology and 9th sign of the zodiac, Sagittarius, don't have a whole lot of that completion energy, right? Because there's 12 houses and 12 signs in astrology. Instead, 9 is a very like eyes wide open, exploratory, adventuresome, seeking type of energy. So 9th house is a house of like foreign travel. That's that Sagittarius exploration, adventure energy. But it's also philosophy and religion and spirituality. But it's the feeling of wanting to explore that. Not so much I'm sitting here in church praying. It's I want to explore my religion. I want to explore this philosophy. I want to explore, the house of higher education. I want to study this because I want to explore it. So in astrology, it's very much a number of exploration in all ways, physically, educationally, spiritually, etc. 10. So 10, as I already mentioned, numerologically, you always break the numbers down to the single digits, or that's one method. And so 10 numerologically would break down to 1, and you start there's the 1, the individual, the new beginning. In astrology, though, we have 10th house and 10th sign of the zodiac, Capricorn. 10th house is a very responsible house, a house of or a 10 is a number of responsibility. I'll say it that way. You could say it's like what we need to do. Like in Vedic astrology, the 10th house is called the karma house. It's the stuff we need to do. So it's house of career, the actions we need to take. You could say that we're supposed to take, but it's not, there's like a realm of possibilities with what we need to do and what we're supposed to do. But it is it's very responsible, a number of responsibility. Okay, I have to get this done. This is important to do. I'm responsible for this. I must, take on that responsibility. Or you can even say karma is leading me in this direction. That's what I'm supposed to do. And that Capricorn energy is very dutiful and responsible. It's down to earth, very down to earth. It's, what are these practical, responsible things I need to get done? So if you think about it, Capricorn is the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, but most of astrology was developed in the northern hemisphere. Sorry, southern folks. So Capricorn season is like hard work. Have you prepared for winter? Get the last things you need to get done. Get it all ready. Da 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 da. It's very responsible and practical stuff we need to do that we should be doing. So there, responsibility. Number 11, of course, numerologically would break down to a 2, which has to do, you and the relationship or relationships, love, etc. Astrologically, 11th house and the 11th sign of Aquarius is about relating to other people. Not so much close relationships, right, which would be 7th house. But 11th house is social and network house. It's how we relate to other people in various ways. Aquarius, humanitarian sign. So it takes on sort of that 2 energy, but I like to see it as 11, right? It can also look like 2, as it's much broader than just one other, a couple other people. It's like social sphere, network sphere, human race sphere, the planet, the animals, all sorts of humanitarian relationships and connections we have that we may or may not be aware of, because we're all relating to everyone we encounter, nature we encounter all the time, whether we're aware of it consciously or subconsciously or not, right? So 11, I see it as a broader relationship energy in astrology, our connections to everyone and everything. So number 12, right? So 12 numerologically breaks down to a 3, which again is the community, the connection, the creativity, what grows from everything else, right? Everything we connect to, communicate with, etc. But 12th house and 12th sign of Pisces are very deep, very, very intangible as well, very much about the inner landscape, the subconscious, the psyche, the dream world. 12th house is also a house of endings. It's where we go when we're beyond our physical form, because again, next is the one, the individual, the self, the first house. So it takes on that 3 community creative energy in almost a completely flipped sort of sense. And it's about our connection to everything non-physical. You can even include emotional connections there, psychological connections, spiritual connections, because again, this is like the dream world, the cosmic ocean, that Piscean energy, the collective unconscious, the universe, the Akashic records, and it's our communication and connections in those very non-physical forms. Yeah, forms. I was going to say forms and capacities, but that didn't feel right. So 12 is a number that is like, how I see it, at least astrologically, that is beyond the form of form. It's the formless. There we go. It's the formless, the realm of the formless, and how we connect and communicate to that from our formless self. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So that is sort of like going through the numbers, seeing how it connects to numerology or not in some cases, from the astrological perspective. And that doesn't totally line up to the tarot. Tarot very much works with the sort of, you could say, standard numerological associations that the numbers have. I'm losing track of my thoughts here. But there's more. So deeper into astrology and numerology are the planetary numbers. And this kind of starts to get into the magical side, both Western and Vedic astrology. And as I mentioned kind of at the beginning, there are ways to add up your birth date, your full birth date, or just your day of birth to get a number. And that is, connects to a planet that is different between Western and Vedic traditions. So it's connected to the planets, but this is sort of like, the doshas of Ayurveda. You don't need to know that to read astrology, but this is something connected to astrology that goes beyond being able to study and read charts. And we'll call it like the magical numerology associated with planets. So I wrote a little list here so I don't jumble them. And I'll give you the numbers associated with the planets in Vedic astrology. And then in Western, I'll say Western astrology, but it's more like Western esotericism, but it's about the astrology. And it's the magic squares and the numbers associated with the planets to create the magic squares. Put a picture here. There are kind of magic squares in Vedic astrology called yantras. I have a picture here. So this is, if I can read this, Chandra, which is the moon. Yeah, I haven't read my Sanskrit in a while. Mangala, which is Mars. And Rahu, which is one of the nodes. And the nodes will have numbers because it goes up to 9. 1 through 9. Okay, so let's do the numbers associated with the planets in Vedic astrology. And so there's ways you can add up your day of birth to find your lucky days. So let's say today's the 29th. So 9 plus 2 is 11 and 1 plus 1 is 2. So let's say you were born on the 29th of a month. 2 would be your lucky number, and any days that break down to a 2 would be good days for you. In theory, that's just one thing. There's so much else that could be going on. You can also add up all the numbers of your birth date to get your Western, it's called life path. Vedic system, I think it's called destiny number. To get that number, and you break it down and connect it to a planet. And then there's ways to do your name. This is something I used to do 25 years ago. I would do my name numerology in various forms. And you can do that and find out your personal planet number. So let's go through that. And those things like life path number, there's other, life path number and destiny number, personal number, your name numbers, the way you add them up is pretty similar, the same, I think, exactly between the systems. For your name, if you're an English speaker, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, etc. Okay, but you can look online for that. Numerology websites. Okay, so the planetary numbers in Vedic astrology. So the sun is 1, the moon is 2, Jupiter is 3, Rahu is 4, Mercury is 5, Venus is 6, Ketu is 7, Saturn is 8, and Mars is 9. So that's them in order. And then I just lined it up there with the planetary numbers that are used to create the magic square. So those are the numbers associated with the planets in Western occultism or esotericism. And I think it might have been originally developed by Agrippa, probably. You can look that up, let me know. So the sun is associated with the number 6 in Western esotericism, the moon with number 9, Jupiter number 4, Mercury number 8, Venus number 7, Saturn number 3, and Mars number 5. And there's probably maybe modern associations for Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, but in the Middle Ages, they weren't known. So there aren't magic squares for them, but again, you can look them up online. So that is sort of outside of being able to read astrology and read a chart. But if you really want to get into more of the magical, mystical side of planetary numbers, you can go further into that. But again, I'm not a numerologist. That's not something I use a whole lot, but I have for study and exploration. Um, but yeah, that is my basic rundown of numbers and general astrological numerology, and basically it's just understanding those numbers through the house and signs, through the houses and the signs, um, and get a feel for what that number means. And then as you read a chart, you could say, this is kind of plays in with the layering of the houses, that video. Maybe I'll link that one on screen here for you towards the end. We're almost there. Where you go layering through the houses, and let's say you want to know about your mother's home life as a child. So you would look 4 houses, or what her sense of stability was. You can even make it abstract. You would look 4 houses from the 4th house, because 4th house is your mother, and 4 houses counting inclusively. So 4th house would be 1, 5th, 2, 6, 3, 7th house is 4 houses from the 4th house, to look at your mother's sense of stability or her home life or anything the number 4 represents in astrology. So yeah, tying that together with the layering of the houses. Okay, I hope this makes sense. It feels a bit rambly, as they all seem to, and then everyone's like, oh, that was great. So hopefully this makes sense. Yeah, but again, if you want to go deeper into it, is sort of beyond reading a chart, which is my point of this astrological studies. But I love to give those pointers to give you extra insights into where astrology can take you or how you can use it, because to me it is very much a tool for us to use for guidance, for trying to figure things out in our lives, to see where life might take us, or how we can work with the energies of the planets, of the transits, of our charts. Okay, so in the next one, I kept thinking I would do a live. I'm not sure yet, only because the screen sharing on lives is weird for me. I'll figure it out by the time I do it. I'll let you know. You'll find out if it's going to be a live or a recorded one where I kind of go through some sample charts. Or maybe I'll do a recorded one and then a live to review them. That might be better. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Thank you for being here. Let me know if you have any questions below, and I'll see you back here soon.